Hi everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Film Talk on WSVA. Name's Tom Explorer, and I'm your host, and Junkers come here. No real introduction, no real segue, just the title of the film. I mean, I don't hate the movie I'm going to be talking about today, but it's just something that feels. No, wait, that's just some. The pieces were all there to make something really great with the film, but the pieces, for one reason or another, just didn't came together. I guess I should give a little bit of background about the films, but there's nothing much really. The only notable things about the film's history is that it was directed by Junichi Sato, of Sailor Moon fame, and that before its theatrical release in Japan, small chunks of it were shown on Japanese television. Not to mention that the story of the film was based on a singer/songwriter named Naoto Kind, who performed both the opening song of the movie and was the voice of Shintaro, in the original Japanese dub of the film. And that the people behind the film was Bandai Visual and Triangle staff. Now, but going into the film's story, it's not much really to write home about. It's just about a girl named Hiromi, if I said that name right. But anyway. Yeah, Hiromi. Yep, it's Hiromi. But anyway, she's a girl who has two problems on her side. She has a crush on her tutor named Keisuke, and that also but has a girlfriend, and that her parents are planning on going through a divorce. Oh, and also she has a dog named Junkers, who the movie's titled about, and he talks and apparently has the same powers of a genie, where he grants 3 wishes. If it sounds like I'm putting that aspect of Junkers on the side, that's because the movie kind of does that at the same time. For a film about a talking dog with supernatural abilities, they don't really devote that much time to him. Instead, under the movie, understandably so, focuses more on the problems Hiromi goes through. And on one hand, it is a bit of false advertising, but on the other hand, at least it knows the focus on the story. The problem with it though is that even if it does work and letting the characters have their moments of experience, to let out their frustration or develops them. Take out the dog and it's just a by the number slice of life story. Nothing about it really stands out otherwise. I mean, sure, there were some cute jokes here and there, like one scene where Hiromi reacted to Junkers calling her a girl, even though she sees herself as a more mature person. And there's one reaction with the housemaid when she realized Keisuke has a girlfriend, for reasons I'll get to why that matters with her later when I get to the characters. But it is what it is with a slice of life story. Several pieces of just parts of people's lives stitched together into a movie, except with a talking dog. With a talking genie-like dog. It doesn't really help where, while I see what the ending was trying to do, it doesn't work. But I'll save that for when I talk about the Junkers as a character. One of the more positive things I will say is that for is that the animation is decent. It's nothing really not mind blowing, but the character animation is still nice for a movie made in Japan. Japan and the designs too. Well, definitely very anime-ish. They do look like they belong in their own unique world instead of just looking like a typical anime style or just emulating the Studio Ghibli style. Even the backgrounds are also are well done. I'm not sure if they did the backgrounds in watercolor or not, but it does have that nice sort of quality that water paintings have, in my opinion. And one notable thing about the animation is towards the third act, where it does sort of let itself out and shows a little bit of creativity with bubbles of all things. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But another nice detail I like is during the scene where Hiromi was out in the snow and the snow starts to fall on her, it kind of has this, it's a little hard to explain, but just the snow, but the way the animators drew the snow landing on her coat and how it looks when drawn, it looks smooth and nice. And one minor thing I should point out is that there are some moments where they capture some subtle details. Going back to the two standout humorous moments I mentioned, when Hiromi reacts to Yonkers calling her a girl, she was wearing sunglasses, and so when she reacts, you could see that her sunglasses tilt. And I thought, wow, that's a nice little detail. Same goes to the maid's reacting to finding out that Keisuke has a girlfriend. You can, while there's a conversation going on in the foreground, in the background, you can see her slowly losing her grip on the food she was carrying, and before it eventually lands. Again, it really does show the people behind at Triangle staff and a visual did have a good eye for some certain details, and I commend them for it. But like I said, don't expect maybe Ghibli levels of animation in terms of this, but they still pulled up nice work from what they had to do. But if I have to go to the biggest problem with the movie, it's that not only does it feel oddly episodic despite having a clear focus, despite having two major conflicts, and that it feels by the numbers, it's the way the characters are written. Starting off with the protagonist, Hiromi, who's an 11-year-old girl, she's meant to be the 11-year-old girl who tries to look and sound mature, but because of the situations around her life, she feels like everything around her is falling apart. Now, I understand that she was going through several tough changes in her life. Her parents were possibly going through a divorce, and that she was getting jealous of that her crush has a girlfriend, and the fact that she's 11-year-old, you could argue she may be going through puberty, but something about her, but there's just something about her that just doesn't seem right. Not because she's whiny or anything, and if anything, that's not the case. It's just her mood swings feel a bit unnatural. One moment she feels down on her luck. The next moment she feels a-okay. Look, it's like I said before. In the movie, I understand maybe the situations that she was going through led to this whole thing happening, but it just didn't seem natural to me. Her parents, meanwhile, just fall into the category of forgettable. If you've seen any workaholic parent before in any movie, that's them in a nutshell. the maid that I was, the maid that I was talking about, or housekeeper before that I was talking about before, Fumie, also doesn't really contribute that much. She's nice and a possible cougar since she's has the hots for someone a bit younger than her. That's all I got from her. Just she's nice and maybe they were intending her to be a cougar, but when those are the only two things I can think of, and one of them is the trait of a middle-aged woman having the hots for a younger male, that's not a good sign. Anyway, Keisuke, I feel like, is one of the more wasted characters, and the same can be said for the titular character, Junkers. I'll start off with the dog. Because Keisuke relates... No, my problem with Keisuke relates to Junkers. Because the movie kind of has a tendency to push Junkers off the side, save for the whole three wishes things and the end, it feels like the Junkers doesn't really... feels more like a plot device. Yes, he talks to Hiromi during the tough situations, but you could do the same with Keisuke. Substitute Junker for Keisuke. It would. It just for some. To me, it would just make more sense if that was the case. Since maybe it would have worked since it was cleared in the movie that he was. For one, the crush Hiromi developed by Keisuke would have explained it a lot better if he was the one that served as the person for Hiromi to talk to, someone to try and understand what was she going through and maybe try to help. And while I did say that Junkers does do something near the end of the movie, even like I said, Keisuke could have just done something similar but albeit not as magical, to try and get the parents to realize, hey, maybe getting a divorce would be a bad idea since our daughter can't handle it despite acting mature on the surface. But going back to Junkers, I mentioned before about the ending and if you haven't seen the movie, I'm probably gonna spoil this, but at the end, after Hiromi's parents decide to not go forward with the divorce, Hiromi tries to talk to Junkers, but only realizes he can't anymore, implying that the three wishes sucked out all the magic out of him, and that she began to ponder, was he ever magical to begin with? On paper, this sounds like a nice ending, since it does leave the audience guessing, was he magical or was this all in Hiromi's head? But what destroyed it was that early in the movie there were what was meant to be just a joke kind of destroyed what they were going for. What I mean was that there was a crossing lady who clearly heard Junkers talk and thought she was going crazy. That right there destroys the point. It destroys the whole argument about Junkers being magical or talking or not, because if someone else other than Hiromi heard Junkers talk, then that must mean that he was able to talk this whole time. And if you're wondering, no, they don't really explain how he was able to talk, but the weird thing is, if it was just a talking dog, I would have just been fine with it, but no, since they gave him these magical properties as well, it just made it harder for me to suspend my disbelief. It doesn't help either that when he made a second wish, and when Hiromi tried to ask him to reverse it or something, he was like, "What? I don't have magical powers." And I'm like, okay. So at first I was like, so is there a part of him that says he's magical, and then there's another part that tries to pretend he's a normal dog? I don't get it. Oh, if you're wondering about... Oh, I should probably mention this. One character that did kind of gave me a bit of a bad taste, even though, if only for one part, was Kazuke's girlfriend, whose name I honestly forgot. Well, there isn't that much to her per se. She's just a girlfriend. There's one part that did kind of bug me. When she was making up with Keisuke after a big fight, she said that she was starting to get jealous of Hiromi, a 11-year-old girl, mind you. And yet, this grown adult woman got jealous over a 11-year-old girl. Let me repeat that. A much older woman of like late 20s, early 30s, I imagine, who has more authority and knows for a fact that Hiromi is out of her age limit, out of her game because of her age, yet she still gets jealous over an 11-year-old girl in junior/elementary school for having a crush on your boyfriend. Let that sink in for you folks. Let it sink in. If I may go into the voice acting, I wouldn't really say I'm someone who does sometimes alternate between watching the original sub or English dub of something. Sorry about that. In this case, the DVD I rented at the SVA library only had the English dub. And yeesh Louise! The voice acting in that film ranges from stiff to awkward to decent. The woman who provided Hiromi's English voice is okay. But that's the only... throughout the whole film, but that's the only one that I could say is decent. Yuger's Keisuke's voice acting doesn't really have that much emotion, and it doesn't help either that both voices sound eerily similar, which probably explains why I felt like Keisuke would have been a better supporting cast than Yuger's, but I went on about that too long. But the worst one was whoever voiced Hiromi's father. He clearly looks like a middle-aged man, yet he sounds like a teenager, and he doesn't have that much emotion. I just remember watching the movie, and whenever he talked, I'm like, come on, no, that does not sound like a dad at all. Just my. And because of this subpar voice acting, it creates moments where I just laugh unintentionally. Intentionally because either how dull the voice acting is, trying to act in a simple discussion, or because some of the more dramatic moments is watered down thanks to the less than stellar performances. So, yeah, I wouldn't really call this a good movie per se. While it didn't put me in a foul mood, it just left me indifferent to the whole thing. Although the animation is decent, The writing feels both episodic and predictable, and follows the slice of life tropes beat by beat. The English voice acting is laughably bad, and the characters didn't quite gel with me. Now, to be fair, like I said earlier, I did watch the English dub. There's a good chance that if I watched the Japanese sub, maybe it probably would have resolved the voice acting issue, and I would have maybe enjoyed the characters a bit more. But I don't think it would have resolved the big issue that there really is no point in having Junkers in the film. He's just there to like tack on gimmick just to try and make this stand out from all the other slice of life animes that Japan cranks out on a daily basis. So even if you are a sucker for dogs like I was, I would say you could still rent it out of curiosity, but don't be shocked if you're underwhelmed by the whole final product. But I will say this: if I did have a group of friends watching this movie with me, when I was watching the English dub, there's a good chance I would have had a better time since we would all be ripping up, since we would have given that dub the Mystery Science Theater 3000 treatment. Because I guarantee you, if you see the movie with that dub, there's gonna be moments where you'll be that are just ripe to point out the silliness. But that's all I got today, folks. Thank you all for watching Film Talk, and I'll see you next week.